I don't think people realize just how much is going to change the moment that Nico Williams signs for Barcelona. Because this isn't just a flashy transfer. It's sort of like a tactical earthquake. Because his arrival just doesn't reshape the left wing. It redefines our entire team and the role of every single attacker behind the striker. In particular, I'm talking about Raphinha. This transfer changes his heat map, his output, even his future at the club. So let's break it down, because if Barcelona get this right, call me crazy, but we could unlock the best front three since Neymar left. But if they don't, then certainly one of our stars could be going out. What's going on, guys? ¿Cómo están? BugaLuis here, and welcome back to another video here on the channel. And today we are diving deep into how Barcelona will line up with Nico Williams, what happens to Raphinha, and why this could change everything we thought we knew about our attack. First, let's get this clear. Nico Williams is just not another signing, it's just not another player, it's just not another winger. We're talking about a top-class prospect, a player who currently is one of the best left wingers in the world. And when it comes down to the prospect, about the future, the potential, it's clear that he will be that player if it's nurtured correctly. He was top 5 in La Liga's for most successful dribbles. I mean, he created more chances than players like Rodrigo. Lamine, Vinicius had more, but he's only 22, so there's certainly room for development. And dare I say it, he was in a team that commanded less space than Real Madrid, than Barcelona. But the scary part about Nico Williams, and the thing that you really need to take into account, and why I really like Nico so much, is that he does all his game from the left with his strong foot. Something that Barca haven't had in years. Well, apart from last season where Raphinha was goated, but that really could change anyways this season. So I'm referring mostly when we had, Neymar all the way back then. And we were stuck now with Ferran, who naturally doesn't really like sticking to the touchlines, or Ansu, who basically is injured all the time and is very inconsistent. Nico gives Barcelona true vertical width, and that opens the door to something just way bigger than a one-player upgrade. If you understand how Hansi Flick builds his teams, and you of course know the formation, the 4-2-3-1, you'll know exactly where Nico fits in, and that's in the left midfielder position. Flick wants to be aggressive with Nico Williams. He wants him to be very tight, very close to the touchline. He wants his wingers high, and he likes them wide. He therefore wants his stacking midfielders making runs in between the lines, not really hugging the flanks, and that brings us back to Raphinha. Because if Nico starts on the left, Raphinha can't keep his position. Surely, right? There's only room for 2 touchline wingers. We have the best player right now in the world in Lamine Yamal, and the best player last season, and we aren't about to bench him, or are we? Flick will certainly most likely push Raphinha inward to play in the sort of half space where Dani Olmo, Fermin Lopez were playing this season. I mean, we all know Olmo is a baller, but I bet he will give us so much coming on as an impact player. But guys, you cannot really tell me that Raphinha wouldn't cook through the middle. Raphinha through the middle, the amount of goals that this guy is gonna get, it's incredible. I mean, his assist might take a toll, but I'll explain to you that in just 1 second. So in other words, Raphinha will move closer to Lewandowski. He will act like a second striker or like a floating number 10. That means fewer crosses, less 1v1s in isolation, and less space to run into. And most importantly, that translates then to fewer numbers. On paper, at least. Last season, over 60% of Raphinha's contribution came from the left flank. This new role would of course limit that. He will get more touches in tight areas, but less of the ball in those sweet spots where we know he can do magic. We will see less of that Raphinha running in the counter like I just loved against Federico Valverde in the Supercopa, or the chances we saw from Raphinha against Bayern Munich in the Champions League. We will instead see Raphinha more of like the one against Celta Vigo, where he has more presence and he's the one connecting rather than creating, finishing rather than, igniting the spark. But picture it now, guys. I want you to focus. Take a moment to breathe this in. Nico Williams on the left, Lewandowski through the middle, and then Lamine Yamal on the right. Raphinha now drifting behind Lewandowski, between the lines, finding the half spaces between Nico and Lamine. On paper, it's quite electric. It really is frantic. But for Raphinha, it's a gamble. Because, like I said, he thrived on that space last season, and now he would just go basically into full traffic. And that could really change how his next few years in the club could develop. I mean, he adapted very well to play into the left midfielder position last season, and there's nothing that couldn't say that he could adapt into this position as well. We've seen Raphinha sometimes already with Hansi Flick in this area of the field, but never as consistently and never as, well, I could say demanding as we will see him now. I mean, we literally last season brought a player in Dani Olmo whose position was meant to be that. And now we're shifting Raphinha here because of the season he had. So I raised the question to you guys. Why do that to a player that has been so instrumental to the success of this team last season? Well, because it makes this team more dangerous. Because Hansi Flick's Barcelona is just not a normal team. It just isn't. Their philosophy is more about scoring and not caring about defending, or, you know, let's say, putting all of their eggs in the basket of the offside trap. Hansi Flick really wants that to be nailed down, because if you're really able to do that, then your pressure can start very high up the field and you can win the ball very high up. And then you can score as many goals as you want, because the opposition are going to be so wrongly, they're going to be so bad, it's going to be a disaster for them. So with Nico now in this team, and with Lamine on the other side, just pinning both their fullbacks very high wide, it stretches the pitch so much. It opens central lanes, and that benefits so many players. You know, Lewandowski, Pedri, Frankie, and it brings us back to Raphinha. Because now the midfield can flood the space in behind. Before on the left, the only player we had to stretch was Balde, and we saw how much it hurt us when we didn't have him, and how much of the game of Raphinha also was impacted because Balde wasn't there. So now imagine two of Baldes. Imagine two Alejandro Baldes on the left wing. I mean, that is just sweet, isn't it? Flick doesn't really want Raphinha on the ball 40 times a game. He wants Raphinha making the runs, taking shots, creating chaos between the defenders. And that's what, for me, Raphinha does best. For me, Raphinha is not the most technically gifted player. I mean, he's a hard worker, and he will make 20, 30, 40, 50 runs if he has to every half, because he will always just give everything for the team. And if you have that heart in the middle of the team, beating constantly, I mean, how will you ever not, I don't know, die? How will you not ever, you know, lower your momentum? I think that if you have that heartbeat just pounding and pounding and pounding in the middle of on the midfield, I think that it can really create something beautiful for Barcelona. Just a work-like mentality for everybody that can just absorb what Raphinha is pushing. So if it clicks, it really is terrifying. And plus, it's an ecosystem where so many players can thrive, because I'm like, hey, I'm scoring 2 goals. Hey, I give it to Lamine. I'm scoring 2 more. And it just builds on this atmosphere that everyone wants to be part of, you know, that everyone wants to contribute. Because if you play like this, you can take on Raphinha, then you can bring on somebody like Fermín López or Dani Olmo. You have so many different chances. If you want to rest Lamine, you can push Raphinha on the right, or you can play Ferran Torres, or you can change Nico Williams over there and keep Raphinha on the left. Like, because Nico can play both wings, Raphinha can play both wings, Lamine Yamal can play on the right only, but Ferran can play both wings. Ferran can play through the middle. There you have Fermín López that can already play through the left sometimes, Dani Olmo too. So you have so many different combinations you can mix and match. You can mix and match that it would just result in basically a team that, no matter the injury, you will be able to supplement this with players that they all can add their little bit of contribution to the attack. And just when everyone's fit, I think that the hierarchy is not so clear, and I like that, because it creates competition, it creates healthy rivalries within the squad, and I like that. I really, really do enjoy this, and I think that this team could really flourish with a signing like Nico Williams. However, there's still a risk, and the risk is that we don't know how this player is gonna react. We all know that the danger of the Club de Amigos, you know, the players that just, they like each other so much that basically they demand minutes on the field as much as possible. We've seen it before with even players as big as Messi, Luis Suarez, and Neymar. Other players getting impacted by that. I remember Arturo Vidal played so many matches that season because basically he was friends with all of them. So things like that can happen. And if Nico Williams doesn't start good, he doesn't start, delivering the goals, assists, and the chemistry, Raphinha then will have to move back to that position. Flick could find himself in that situation. So there are questions that could arise on this, but I do believe that the best possible solution to improving this team is not just focusing on the defense, that of course we need to improve, but keep building when you are at the strongest. I think that is the best message that you can give the rest of Europe. I mean, with this attack, if you add to that Nico Williams, what sort of message are you sending to everyone out there? It's sort of like when Real Madrid signed Mbappe. I know next season they basically lost everything, they didn't win a single trophy, but the message that you send is just so strong that basically no one cannot tune in the TV to see the team that is playing, right? And I know that Barcelona already achieved that last season, but we can take it to the next stage. So guys, let me know in the comment box down below, what's your take? Is this evolution? Is this right? Should Raphinha change for Nico Williams? Should Barcelona find a different system? For me, this is perfect. I'm just in love with this team at the moment. That's why we're creating content back again. Subscribe if you want to follow everything on the channel. I create a playlist with all of the content that you need to watch for this season. And of course, I'm going to be here the moment it's announced. This is special. This is very, very good. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Ciao, ciao.